The room was so quiet I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner above us. I sat at the head of the conference table and looked at the people who were supposed to be my family. My wife had been buried only days earlier, yet grief was not what filled the room. Greed was. My daughter-in-law Vanessa leaned forward and dropped a stack of legal papers onto the polished table. The sound echoed through the boardroom. A cold smile spread across her face. "Now that Evelyn is gone," she said, "it is time to do what is best for everyone. Sign the company over to Noah and step aside." I glanced at my son Ryan. He stared at the floor instead of looking me in the eye. They thought they had already won. They believed a 70-year-old widower was too heartbroken to fight back. What they forgot was that I had spent 40 years building an empire from nothing. I smiled and folded my hands. 3 seconds later, the boardroom doors opened. My attorney walked inside carrying a sealed envelope. The expression on Vanessa's face disappeared instantly. That moment did not happen by accident. It was the result of 3 days that completely changed my life. 3 days earlier, I stood alone in the kitchen of the home my wife and I had shared for 45 years. The silence hurt more than anything. Every corner of the house carried a memory of Evelyn. While I washed a glass at the sink, I heard heels clicking across the hardwood floor. Vanessa walked into the kitchen wearing a designer black suit. She looked more prepared for a corporate takeover than a funeral. Without offering a single word of sympathy, she placed a folder on the counter. The title read, "Executive Succession Agreement." "You need to sign this today," she said. "You are grieving and not capable of running Harrison Freight anymore. Noah should take control immediately." Noah was my 18-year-old grandson. He spent more time posting pictures of luxury cars online than learning how a business operated. I stared at the papers. My wife and I had started Harrison Freight with 1 truck and barely enough money to buy fuel. We spent years sleeping in truck stops and eating cheap sandwiches while building the company. Every dollar came from sacrifice. Now Vanessa wanted me to hand everything to a teenager so she could control it from behind the curtain. Before I could respond, Ryan entered the kitchen. "Dad, you need to think about your health," he said gently. "Let us handle things. You deserve to rest." His concern sounded convincing, but I knew my son. The words were not coming from him. They were coming from Vanessa. I told them I would review the documents. As they walked away, I noticed Vanessa stop near the front door and send a text message. "The old man took the bait," she whispered. She had no idea I could see her reflection in the window. That was when I realized this was not concern. It was a plan. The next morning, I arrived at company headquarters before sunrise. I wanted access to the archive records. When I tried to enter the secure records room, my executive keycard failed. Access denied. I tried again. Denied. A third time. Denied. Then our chief financial officer, Brandon Cole, appeared from around the corner. "Funny seeing you here so early, Richard," he said. "My card is not working," I replied. Brandon smiled. "Security updates. Ryan approved them while you were away." I looked into his eyes. He was lying. The update was an excuse. Someone was locking me out of my own company. Instead of arguing, I returned to my office. 10 years earlier, I had created a hidden backup system that mirrored every financial record in the company. Nobody knew it existed. Within minutes, I was inside the database. What I found made my blood run cold. Millions of dollars had disappeared through shell companies and fake invoices. Someone was stealing from Harrison Freight. Before I could investigate further, my phone rang. The hospital. My grandson had been involved in a serious motorcycle accident. Everything else suddenly became secondary. I rushed to the hospital and found Vanessa pacing the hallway while Ryan sat with his head in his hands. Doctors managed to stabilize Noah, but he had lost a dangerous amount of blood. Then the physician delivered unexpected news. "Your grandson has AB positive blood," he said. "We urgently need compatible donors." The words hit me like a freight train. I was type O, my late wife was type O, Ryan was type O, Vanessa was type A. Basic genetics told me something impossible. Two parents with those blood types could not produce a child with AB positive blood. I slowly turned toward Ryan. He was pale, terrified, not confused, terrified. That reaction told me everything. Later, I invited him to the hospital cafeteria. Over bitter coffee, I casually asked how Noah could have AB positive blood. Ryan exploded. He accused me of being paranoid. He blamed hospital paperwork. He blamed grief, but he never answered the question. An innocent man explains, a guilty man attacks. By the time I left that table, I knew there was a secret hiding inside my family. That evening, I visited their home, carrying containers of soup. While they were distracted downstairs, I quietly collected DNA samples from Noah's toothbrush and from Ryan's clothing. The next morning, I delivered both samples to a private genetics laboratory. Then I continued investigating the company theft. What I uncovered was worse than I imagined. $4.5 million had been stolen, not from profits, not from reserve funds, from employee pensions. The retirement savings of hard-working drivers and warehouse workers had been drained while my wife was dying of cancer. The fraud traced directly back to Brandon, and every path eventually pointed toward Vanessa. Then the DNA results arrived. I sat alone in my truck and opened the envelope. Probability of paternity, 0%. Ryan was not Noah's biological father. The grandson I had loved for 18 years carried none of my bloodline. For one brief moment I felt grief. Then grief transformed into clarity. Someone had built an enormous lie around my family. I hired a former federal investigator named Daniel Reyes. 3 days later, he handed me a thick file. Inside were photographs, financial records, travel records, and one devastating truth. Vanessa and Brandon had been lovers for nearly 20 years. They had known each other long before she met Ryan. Further testing confirmed that Brandon was Noah's biological father. The entire marriage had been a long con. Then Daniel showed me something even worse, an email written by Ryan years earlier. In it, my son admitted he was sterile. He knew Noah was not his child. He knew Vanessa had betrayed him, and he helped hide the truth because he feared losing his inheritance. That discovery hurt more than everything else combined. Vanessa had deceived me, but Ryan had betrayed me. My own son had chosen money over honesty. At that point, the game was over. I called Vanessa and Ryan to my house and pretended to surrender. I acted exhausted, broken, defeated. I told them I was ready to sign the succession agreement. The excitement in Vanessa's eyes was impossible to hide. She thought victory was finally hers. We scheduled the signing ceremony during the Friday board meeting, exactly where I wanted it. Friday arrived. Executives filled the boardroom. Vanessa sat confidently beside Ryan. Brandon looked relaxed. The succession documents waited on the table. Vanessa smiled. Everything was proceeding according to her plan. Then she asked for my signature. Instead, I smiled. The boardroom doors opened. My attorney entered carrying several folders. He placed the first document directly in front of Vanessa. DNA results. Her face turned white. The second folder went to Brandon. Evidence of embezzlement. The third folder went to federal investigators waiting outside. Criminal referrals. Silence swallowed the room. I stood and looked directly at Ryan. "You knew," I said quietly. He lowered his head. He could not deny it. Then I addressed the board. I explained the theft, the fake companies, the pension fraud, the affair, the lies. By the time I finished, security officers were escorting Brandon out of the building. Vanessa followed shortly after. Ryan was removed from every position he held within the company. The people who thought they were burying me ended up destroying themselves. Months later, after the investigations ended, I made one final decision. Half of my fortune went into a scholarship foundation named after my wife. The other half became an employee ownership trust. The workers who helped build the company would now share its future. No entitled heirs, no greedy relatives, no predators hiding behind family titles, just good people rewarded for loyalty. As I stood on the roof of company headquarters, looking across the city skyline, I thought about Evelyn. She used to say that character reveals itself when money and power enter the room. She was right. The people who betrayed me showed exactly who they were, and in the end, they learned something important. A man may lose the love of his life. He may lose sleep. He may even lose faith in the people around him. But if he built his life with strength and integrity, he never truly loses his power. And when the time came, I reminded them of exactly who I was.